there in YouTube land.
Welcome back.
Today we're going to tackle our first vampire superhero movie.
Yeah, that would be Blade.
Yes.
And we're only going to talk about Blade 1, the first one, as we all know.
Yes.
There are several.
You know, the 2 and 3 are other videos and other, you know, variances of good and bad.
Yeah.
But the first one's a great film.
First one is a great film. It really was the first introduction to kind of this heroic, superhero type vampire. And also it brings in an interesting concept with Blade being half human. Mm-hmm. Which, if you go back to some of the folklore, they were called Dampiers. Mm-hmm. And essentially, you know, they were half human, half vampire. And not really liked either.
No. In folklore, Dampiers were the outcasts of society. You know, it was kind of like legal to like stone them in the street and stuff. So no. Folklore, not so good. But Stan Lee took the idea and made a Dampier a kick-ass superhero, which is really cool.
And just take a moment for, you know, Stan Lee.
Yes. He's greatly missed.
He is.
So, what's cool about the story is that, just in the film, we're not going to get into, like, the rich history of the comic book because it's big. So, if you want to get into the comic book, go read the comic book.
Go read it. Go have fun with it.
But the film, you know, you start out with Blade's mother having been attacked by a vampire, and then she gives birth and dies during childbirth, which produces Blade.
Yep.
And
it's almost that concept that the vampire is created a little bit through the virus.
Yeah.
So you kind of get that aspect of it as more of a biological thing and not
supernatural per se. The interesting part about it, though, is that this is where we get into comic books slamming together a folklore in a way that doesn't necessarily go together that well.
Yeah.
Our big, like, kind of rant about this is the fact that Blade uses silver as, like, an antigen or whatever against vampires. While silver has healing properties and so on and so forth, and it can break down bacteria, its connections to vampires is very, very tremulous.
Yeah, and you see it more with werewolves.
Yes.
You know, you talk about the antique hereditary silver killing the werewolf. You don't see it much, if at all, in vampiric lore.
And the reason why is that, you know, vampires were thought of to be not only, you know, historically demonic figures, but they were also something else that was like a demon in flesh. So it wasn't that silver could harm a vampire, it was religious items could harm a vampire.
Yes.
So using silver against a vampire doesn't quite mesh with the folklore. And they also don't do a very good job of explaining why silver affects vampires.
Right. That's one of the plot holes in Blade.
Yeah.
And then you kind of step away and we see, instead of like a Renfield character that would follow Blade, you get the weaponsmith. And my god, I'd like to have some of his weapons.
Yeah, so Chris Christopherson plays the weapons dude. And unfortunately I forget his name right offhand because my brain's going Thor. But what's cool about it is that he's kick-ass in his own right. So he's more of a associate like Batman has his associate and, you know, that type of thing instead of... So that really cements it more into, like, the superhero world versus, you know, the archetypical, like, Dracula and Renfield type relationship.
And he actually, you know, helps Blade hunt. He has knowledge of the vampires and where they are and what habits they have.
And helps Blade with his serum that he needs to keep from becoming fully vampiric. So it's interesting. And then Deacon Frost. He is an awesome villain.
He is. He is. He really epitomizes, you know, what you're looking for in this movie.
Yes.
That would be the complete opposite of Blade.
Yeah. You know, and, you know, it's one of those things where when the film first came out, I had kind of a crush on Deacon Frost because he was, like, so badass and, like, you know, type thing.
Badass and a smartass.
Exactly, and those two things together I find very entertaining. But I also like the fact that they did dive into their own type of folklore with, like, the manuscript and everything, and Blade has to try and keep them from, like, doing this big ritual to make vampires take over the world.
Right.
And I like the fact that they really spent a lot of time in the film explaining what this manuscript was, how the ritual works, and why it was so important to stop everything right now.
Because in a lot of ways, especially in more modern film, you kind of get this, well, we have this manuscript, and it does something, and we gotta stop it. Next scene.
Yeah. Or another good example of this is when they remade Evil Dead, and the guy conveniently had a Latin dictionary in his backpack to be able to translate parts of the manuscript. I don't know about you, but I don't carry around a Latin to English dictionary.
No.
I mean, I actually own one, but I don't carry one around.
Don't carry one. I know a few words, but that would have to be a go back to the...
Yeah. And also, in order... anyone that's ever taken Latin as a language, you need a lot more than just a dictionary to be able to translate something, because the way Latin is constructed, it is not easily translated into English.
No, it's not.
So, you know, I like the fact that with Blade, they took the time and, you know, okay, they had older ancient vampires there that were able to translate the manuscript instead of, like, piecing together this, like, dumb, like, convenient way to have this accomplished, you know. So, while there are some things with Blade we don't like, there are a lot of things that are, like, a awesome thing to do with this film, and Wesley Snipes does a really good job.
He does an excellent job, and I really can't see, God forbid, if they ever tried to redo Blade. Please don't do that, please.
There's been talk about, I mean, they did the TV show, which I have not watched. I mean, to me, Wesley Snipes is Blade, so it's kind of hard to see someone else in that role for me. I'm really tired of remakes.
I am too.
If the original source thing is good, just
leave it alone.
Yeah, please. But, you know, the other thing that's kind of cool with this is that you had the atmosphere. And, you know, the opening scene of Blade is the kind of techno-gothy nightclub, and then vampire attack, and then Blade comes in right immediately. So you don't have, like, a long backstory of Blade to get right into the action. You have the slam action. There we go. Smam, there's a new word for you. So we have the slam action with Blade fighting vampires, and then you get into the backstory, which I, as an author, find much more enjoyable for a reader to read versus spending a whole bunch of time on backstory, and then you finally get to the action.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like, you know, an hour long of backstory, and then where are we now?
Yeah.
I think, too, that just the action in and of itself, Wesley Snipes kept everything very fast-paced. He actually, I feel for that man, the amount of stuff he had to learn in a very short amount of time.
And he's kept up the martial arts stuff over the years, which, you know, is commendable. It's very cool.
Kept up the martial arts, the weapons, skills, everything. And you also, I mean, you do get a little fantastical with the weapons.
Yeah.
A little, you know, but if you think about what genre you're in, you're a little bit sci-fi in there, too.
Yeah. So. And, you know, also in terms of the scope of weapons, Blade is much more realistic in terms of weaponry and things than a lot of other superhero paths. So that's also, in my opinion, something going for Blade, is that it's much more reality-based.
It is. And I only get, you know, nitpicky with weapons because I look at a weapon and say, well, oh my god, that would break in 2 seconds. So why would you use that?
Like vampire journals. We'll have a rant on that one day.
Oh, we will. That's coming.
Oh, yes. So, what is your favorite vampire superhero There are several out now.
There are.
So comment down below.
Let us know, and until next time,
Bye.
bye.